Friends, welcome to the channel. Today we have a really special episode. We'll talk about the craziest American station wagons that looked like family wagons but had a real beast hiding under the hood. Before we dive into this list, I have a small favor to ask of you. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you've been with us for a long time, then you already know your like and comment help promote the video and make it even cooler. Well, get comfortable because right now I'm going to show you such family slippers that even a Ferrari in the 70s looked like a turtle next to them. Guys, let's start with a real beast in the form of a family station wagon. Number 1. 1970 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser with a 442 engine. From the outside, it is an ordinary long station wagon for family trips or picnics with a panoramic roof and 3 rows of seats, but under the hood there was real madness. This car completely destroyed the stereotypes that family cars cannot be fast. The heart of this beast was the legendary 455 cubic inch V8 from Oldsmobile 442. For the early 70s, this was one of the most powerful engines installed in production cars. Just think, this engine produced about 370 horsepower and more than 440 pound-feet of torque. And all this under the hood of a station wagon that looked completely ordinary on the outside. At the traffic lights, no one expected a family station wagon to move so quickly. And believe me, the Ferraris and Mustangs of the era often looked at the Vista Cruiser in amazement. When it came to acceleration, this car was a beast. It covered the quarter mile in about 14 seconds for a station wagon with 3 rows of seats. Imagine driving your kids to school with so much power under the hood that every sports car on the highway would nervously glance in their mirrors. It's the perfect example of an American sleeper car, a car that hides speed behind the appearance of an ordinary family car. But it's not just speed that makes the Vista Cruiser special. This car is truly practical. A panoramic roof, a huge trunk, 3 rows of seats, it's made for a family. And yet, when you press the gas, the feeling of control and power is simply amazing. The suspension was designed for a powerful V8, so the car went like on rails, and the steering was surprisingly precise for such a large body. What's also interesting is the rarity and history of the model itself. The Vista Cruiser was part of the Oldsmobile line since the late 60s and became a symbol of American family luxury at that time. But versions with a 442 engine were produced in limited editions, which makes them a real collector's rarity today. Each such car was like a personal project, which combined power, comfort, and uniqueness. And you know what really amazes me? This car was incredibly versatile. On the one hand, it was ideal for family trips, comfortable, roomy, with well-thought-out ergonomics. On the other hand, on a straight line, it could compete with real sports cars, and this is not an exaggeration. This is exactly why I love such American cars. They have always been able to combine crazy speed with practicality. In general, the 1970 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser with a 442 engine is a great example of the fact that family station wagons do not necessarily have to be boring. It's a car that combines comfort, style, and insane power to wow anyone on the road. Thinking about it, I realize that American automotive history is full of these sleeper monsters, and it's cars like these that make car culture so exciting. Number 2. 1966 Dodge Coronet 440 wagon. At first glance, this is just a family station wagon, a long car for a picnic, a trip to the supermarket, or a family trip. But if you dig deeper, then behind this calm appearance, there is real potential that can baffle even sports cars of those years. Let's start with the name itself. The number 440 in the model name does not mean that the legendary 440 cubic meter engine is installed under the hood. In fact, this is just a designation of the configuration. But here's the most interesting thing. The Coronet 440 wagon could be ordered with a whole range of engines, from modest 6s to powerful V8s. And when this station wagon was equipped with a Magnum V8 engine with a volume of 440, the car turned from an ordinary long bus into a real monster. Let's imagine for a second. It's 1966, you're pulling up to a stoplight in your family Coronet Wagon, and there's some guy sitting next to you in a Mustang or Camaro. From the outside, your car looks like an ordinary family station wagon with a ton of luggage and kids in the back seat. But when the light turns green, you step on the gas and this behemoth comes to life. Over 350 horsepower and tons of torque propels the car forward, leaving the competition in the dust, wondering how the family station wagon just humiliated it. And that's the magic of the Coronet wagon. In the 60s, Dodge realized that America valued practicality as well as speed. And they literally brought the two worlds together, a spacious body that could fit half a house and an engine that could lift the car into muscle car status. That's the true definition of a sleeper car, a car that won't show its teeth until you step on the gas. What's especially interesting is that these cars were rare not because they were difficult to build, but because few people ordered them. At the time, people perceived the Coronet wagon as either a quiet family car or a muscle car like the Charger and Coronet RT. But those few who dared to combine the two concepts got a truly unique car. And today, such versions are considered real gems of collectors. And you know, I think these station wagons reflect the spirit of America in the 60s. It was a time when even family cars could be incredibly fast, when manufacturers were not afraid to experiment and gave buyers the opportunity to build a car to their taste. Now it is difficult to imagine a modern station wagon that can compete with a sports car in a straight line. But back then, it was possible, and this is what made cars like the 1966 Dodge Coronet 440 wagon so iconic. Number 3. 1971 Buick Sport Wagon. Honestly, if you see this car on the street, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, an ordinary station wagon for a large family. But if you dig a little deeper, you realize that this was one of the most interesting station wagons in America in the early 70s. First of all, the design. The Buick Sport Wagon was not boring. It had a long body, a signature chrome grille, and a characteristic line of side windows. But the coolest thing was the roof with the so-called panoramic sections. Yes, in some versions, the roof had glass inserts, almost like the minivans of the 80s-90s. For children, this was real entertainment. You sit in the back seat and look at the sky, as if you were driving a mobile home. But the most important thing that made this car a legend was the engines. The basic versions, of course, offered calm engines, but Buick always gave the opportunity to choose something more serious. And if the buyer knew what he was doing, he could order a 455 V8. Imagine, under the hood of a station wagon that carried children to school and groceries from the supermarket, there were more than 315 horsepower and tons of torque. For the early 70s, this was just crazy power. Now imagine the situation. The father of the family is driving his sport wagon along the highway. In the cabin, his wife, 2 children, suitcases, and even a dog. And somewhere nearby on the road, a race starts. For example, some guy in a Pontiac GTO or Chevrolet Camaro decides to show off his class. And at that moment, our dad presses the gas. The Buick, with its heavy body, suddenly comes to life, roars, and accelerates so that even muscle cars are left behind. This is a real sleeper, a car that looks like a barn on wheels but is able to humiliate the sports cars of that time. Another thing is that the Sport Wagon was a very rare car in a charged configuration. Most people took it as a regular family transport, without any 455 V8. So today, finding such a station wagon with a big engine is a huge success. Collectors literally hunt for them because it combines 2 things at once: practicality and the legendary spirit of American muscle cars. I would say that the 1971 Buick Sport Wagon was something of a hidden weapon for family men. A car that looked peaceful on the outside, but as soon as it hit the road, it showed who the real master of the road was. And you know what's most interesting? Now such cars are valued even more than classic sedans or coupes, because sleeper wagons are a culture unto themselves. They're rare, they're charismatic, and they perfectly capture the spirit of a time when a car could be both a family car and a wildly fast one. Number 4. 1969 Chevrolet Kingswood with a 427 engine. At first glance, this is just a giant car for a large family, a typical barn on wheels that millions of Americans used. But once you find out that under the hood of this colossus there could be an engine from a real muscle car, you understand that in front of you is a real monster. The Kingswood itself was huge, more than 5.5 meters long, very wide, with massive shapes, a characteristic chrome grille, and recognizable square headlights. The interior was designed for 8 people, and even with an additional third row of seats, which faced the rear, children sat and waved to the cars that were left behind. It was a real family carriage. But the funny thing is that in 1969, Chevrolet offered a line of engines for the Kingswood that included not only calm V8s for everyday driving, but also a real gun, a 7.0-liter big block 427. And now pay attention, this is the same engine that was installed in the Corvette. Imagine an engine designed for a sports car shoved into a family station wagon weighing almost 2 tons. The 427 produced more than 390 horsepower, and some versions accelerated so much that any neighbor in a Camaro or Chevelle could nervously smoke on the sidelines. And the funniest thing is that all this was packed into a body that looked like a car for going to the grocery store. That's why such station wagons are called sleeper cars. No one expected that this heavy cow could roar and drive away from a sports coupe. I love to imagine scenes like this. Somewhere on the highway in 1969, a young guy is standing in a Ford Mustang, confident that he's about to beat the family dad in a big station wagon. The traffic light turns green, the Mustang takes off, and next to it is a Kingswood with a 427 engine with his wife, kids, and luggage inside. The dad steps on the gas, and suddenly this huge barn shoots forward so that only the Mustang's taillights remain in the mirror. This is pure humiliation. And this is not a joke. The Kingswood was truly one of the fastest station wagons of the late 60s. Yes, it was heavy. Yes, it consumed fuel like an airplane, but it proved that even a family car can be a real muscle car at heart. Today, finding a Chevrolet Kingswood with a 427 big block is a huge rarity. Most cars of that time were taken with more modest engines. And those examples that have survived to this day with their native 427 are worth crazy money to collectors. Because this is not just a rare station wagon, it is a piece of American automotive history where comfort and crazy power went hand in hand. Honestly, if I had a choice, a boring sedan or a station wagon like this with a Corvette engine, I would not even think about it. Because the 1969 Chevrolet Kingswood 427 is the perfect combination of family comfort and adrenaline on wheels. Number 5. 1968 Ford Country Squire. If the Chevrolet Kingswood was a brutal and heavy barn, then the Country Squire is a car that literally screamed, "I am the perfect car for an American family." See for yourself. A giant body, huge windows, a 3-row interior that could easily accommodate 7 or even 9 people. And of course, the signature feature of the Country Squire is the fake wood panels on the sides. They gave the car that very country charm, as if you had not just a car, but a whole country house on wheels. In the 60s, this was the kind of design that was considered prestigious. If you had a Country Squire, it meant you had a family, status, and taste. But the most interesting thing began under the hood. In 1968, Ford offered the Country Squire with different engines, and among them was a real monster, a 7-liter V8 428 Cobra Jet. Yes, that same engine that powered the legendary Mustang Cobra Jet and Ford muscle cars. Now imagine this beast in a station wagon that at first glance was designed only to take kids to school and groceries from the supermarket. When you have 335 horsepower and a ton of torque under the hood, this wooden barn turns into a car that can accelerate much faster than the driver next to you in a Camaro or Charger thinks. Yes, the Country Squire was heavier and longer than most muscle cars, but it could really put up a fight on a straight line. Picture the scene. A family is loading the car for a picnic, with baskets of food in the trunk and bicycles on the roof. Dad gets behind the wheel, the kids are making noise in the back, and Mom says, "Just don't speed, please." And so Dad pulls out onto the highway, steps on the gas, and this huge station wagon starts to roar and rush forward so that the whole family is pressed into their seats. This is what a sleeper in its purest form means. You would never expect a car with wood panels to shoot like that. The Ford Country Squire was also very expensive for its time. It was the top station wagon in the Ford lineup and essentially a luxury car for those who did not want a sedan or coupe. Inside, there was a comfortable interior with soft sofas, rich trim, and a bunch of little things that made the trip more enjoyable. It was, in fact, an analog of a limousine for a middle-class family. Today, such cars with a Cobra jet engine are a rarity. Most of the Country Squires have survived to this day in home versions with small V8s. But those that receive the 428 engine are incredibly highly valued by collectors. And it's understandable. After all, the combination of fake wood, comfort, and a wild engine is something that will never be repeated in the automotive world. Personally, I think that the 1968 Ford Country Squire with a 428 Cobra jet engine is the quintessence of an American station wagon. Beautiful, comfortable, and at the same time hiding a real muscle car character under the hood. And you know, if I were in America in the late 60s, then I would probably drive my family in such a station wagon, because it is not just transport, but a lifestyle. Number 6. 1989 Pontiac Safari Wagon. Look, by that time, minivans and SUVs were already actively displacing classic station wagons. Chrysler, with its Voyager and Dodge Caravan, were literally taking over the market, and at the same time, the Chevrolet Suburban was turning into a cult SUV. But Pontiac stubbornly held on to the classics and released its Safari wagon, which was, in fact, a brother of the Chevrolet Caprice wagon and Oldsmobile custom cruiser. It looked like a real ship on wheels. The length was more than 5.5 meters. A wide body, a long hood, and of course, those same wooden linings on the sides that made the car look like a retro cottage on wheels. Even in 1989, when it looked a little outdated, Americans still considered this style prestigious. Because the Safari was not just a car, it was a symbol of a large family and a real American dream. Now the most interesting part, the engines. Under the hood of the Safari wagon in the late 80s, you could find large V8s with a volume of 5.0 or 5.7 liters. The most desirable was the 5.7-liter engine, which produced not cosmic, but solid for its time about 190 horsepower, and most importantly, huge torque. Yes, the numbers are not impressive compared to the 60s, but you need to understand, this was not a sports car, but a family tractor that confidently pulled a trailer, boat, or trailer. And this is its strength. The Safari was a car that could be both a family vehicle and a workhorse. It had a huge trunk, a third row of seats, and if you folded all the seats, you could load half a house there. Inside, it was a real salon living room. Soft sofas, wide doors, comfortable seating. Many owners actually drove these cars like buses, on vacation, fishing, out of town with a bunch of things. But for all its family appeal, the Pontiac Safari wagon remained a sleeping beast. Its 5.7-liter engine allowed you to confidently overtake on the highway, and if you saw it in the rearview mirror, it was better to squeeze to the right. Because this colossus accelerated with unexpected ease for its size. It is also interesting that the 1989 Safari was one of the last models of full-size Pontiac station wagons. In the early 90s, the era of such cars ended, and all the attention of buyers switched to minivans and SUVs. Today, it is almost impossible to meet such a car on the road. Most have long since rotted away or were scrapped, and the surviving examples have become real collectible rarities. And here is what I personally think. The 1989 Pontiac Safari wagon is like a farewell song to an entire era. This is a car that held on until the last when the world was already moving towards practical minivans. This is a huge, cozy, and at the same time charismatic station wagon that today looks like a living piece of history. So if you ever see a late 80s Pontiac Safari on the road, don't laugh at its wooden sides and square headlights. Before you is a legend that ended an entire era of American station wagons. Number 7. 1996 Buick Roadmaster Wagon LT1. A true masterpiece and one of the fastest American station wagons of its time. Externally, the Roadmaster wagon looked like a typical family barn. A huge body, almost 5.6 meters long, wooden linings on the sides. All this screamed, "I was made for picnics, trips out of town, and school routes." But Buick decided that its station wagons should be able to not only take the kids to the baseball section, but also seriously surprise on the highway. And here is where the magic begins. Under the hood of the 1996 version was the same 5.7-liter V8 LT1, familiar to fans from the Chevrolet Corvette C4 and Camaro Z28. Yes, the same engine that was installed in sports cars. Of course, in the Roadmaster it was a little calmed down, about 260 horsepower and 450 newtons of torque, but for a huge station wagon this was a real breakthrough. To give you an idea, this barn weighed more than 2 tons, but it accelerated to 100 kilometers per hour in about 7.5 seconds. For a family car of the mid-90s, it was a rocket. Many Roadmaster owners joke that they could drive away from Mustangs at a traffic light while they had bicycles, suitcases, and a dog in the trunk. And the trunk there was just crazy. The Roadmaster wagon had a third row of seats that opened in the trunk and looked back. Children loved to ride in it because you could wave your hands at the cars driving behind. If you folded the seats, you got a cargo compartment the size of a small bedroom. It is not for nothing that the Roadmaster is often called a storage room on wheels. The interior is pure luxury by station wagon standards. Soft leather seats, wood on the dashboard, electric adjustments of everything that can be adjusted. This car really felt like American luxury, just in a station wagon body. But the coolest thing is that the Roadmaster wagon was kind of the last of the Mohicans. 1996 was the last year Buick produced this wagon. After that, the era of full-size barns finally ended, and SUVs like the GMC Yukon and Chevrolet Tahoe took their place. Today, finding a living Roadmaster LT1 is a rare success. Many of them are snapped up by collectors and fans of American V8s because it is a unique combination, a luxurious, huge family wagon with the heart of a Corvette. And for me personally, the 1996 Buick Roadmaster Wagon LT1 is one of the coolest sleeping family sports cars because it combined everything: comfort, practicality, and the ability to show teeth if someone decided to test it on the track. So, if you ever come across this car, do not think that in front of you is just an old barn with wooden overlays. No, this is a real monster that is still capable of humiliating many rivals on the road.